Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can begin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. I know that it's a very busy day in Parliament. There are currently three budget votes that are taking place, but we thank you very much for your multitasking skills, that you could still be here while you've got another year on other budget votes that are taking place. We have invited you, the presiding officers have invited you here to interact with you ahead of the scheduled budget vote 2 of Parliament of the Republic of South Africa, which will be taking place this afternoon at 2 o'clock in both the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. So we have got the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, and the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly to interact with you with regard to the overview of the presentation on budget number 2 that will be taking place, as I've said, this afternoon. So the presiding officers are not going to read a full statement because it's quite lengthy. What we'll do, we will distribute it to all of you so that you can refer in terms of the things that they will be saying, refer to the statement. So that the statement will be your full information resource with regard to this interaction. And thereafter, after they have given a brief overview, we can take few questions. We'll appreciate that they still have to go and finalize their presentation this afternoon. So without any taking more time, I will invite the Speaker of the National Assembly just to present an overview.
Mutapo, why don't you tell them that we still have to go and powder our noses? I think that's more accurate information. That includes the Deputy Speaker, by the way. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. As Mutapo has explained, we don't intend to deal with the details, the texts of our speeches. That we know you will go and divide yourselves up so you can hear what we are saying directly, except to point out the approach, the background is based on the fact that this is the last budget vote in this term. Next year, as you are aware, we will simply have the State of the Nation address, have the presentation 2 weeks later of the budget speech. But we will not then go into the usual budget vote processes of then dealing with the detail of budget vote by budget vote. So that then means we take a view that looks back at the whole term. Because right now, I don't know that we even have a full year left, because we don't know the date of the next election, but we also are about to break next week for the time that has been set aside that we have already announced, whereby we will also be talking about the fact that we have agreed with the executive, given that this is this type of year, the last year just before the year of the elections, the executive is submitting the priority legislation, which we would then realistically be able to process and be done with before we rise, before the elections. So that's the approach we are taking. So among things that this year says to us is that we must write a legacy report. We must leave a full report of major work that we've done in this term, in order also to identify whether there are specific areas that we should make proposals and recommendations on to the next parliament, the 6th parliament. Because those who will arrive here must not arrive and find nothing. They must be guided. We must be able to make an indication of what we started, which we believe they must take forward. So our speeches will make reference to that. In terms of the National Assembly, all the presiding officers have some time to speak. Both the Deputy Speaker and I, and the 3 House chairpersons. But in addition to that, there are a couple of MPs who will also speak. One that I can say that I requested the whippery to allow inclusion of in the speakers list is the co-chairperson of the Ethics Committee. I think that's an important area of the work we have done, on which he will make certain remarks. Because the area of ethics and the integrity of the work that politicians do often comes under attack. And therefore we have found it necessary to put a spotlight on this area of work, to even say what more can we do as we move forward to strengthen integrity in the state institutions, to help those that are coming after us, who take the guidance of these institutions of democracy forward into a better South Africa. Because again, through work that has been done here in Parliament, some of what has gone wrong in that regard has come out. And we think it's a correct thing that it comes out. That's the role that we are supposed to play as parliamentarians. So we'll make reference to a broad range of areas of the work we have done in this term, and we will specify also how we believe we should move forward, and how do we play a role as the 5th Parliament in preparing for those who will come after us, to put in place a parliament in the 6th term that can even be more successful in doing a further work based on what we would have started. So that's basically what we want to sensitize you to. We look forward to you being in the debates in the chambers. It's a pity that we have to hold our budget vote debates separately in the 2 different houses, but we thought we should come and just give you a sense of where we are going this afternoon. With those general remarks, I wish to thank you very much for your interest in the work of Parliament, and we hope that we will continue enjoying your support, and that beyond our term you will continue to be ready to cooperate with the new deployees to Parliament in the leadership of this institution, which is a very, very important one as part of a developmental state, of which democracy is a critical component. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll hand over to the chairperson, who arrived this morning from Gauteng.
Yes.
Where she was, of course, for 2 weeks attending the Pan-African Parliament session. And of course, yesterday she had to attend a very senior committee meeting.
Speaker, thank you. I have very little to add. Obviously, in the NCOP, we will try and focus on one of the requirements of the House, and it is to ensure that we integrate the processes between the spheres of government. So we'll speak a little bit on our experience since 2014 on intergovernmental relations. We will also look at our contributions, the challenges, the good things around our contribution as Parliament in the international fora that we represent Parliament in. We can proudly say that compared to the years before 2014, we have done an analysis and we have seen that there has been an improvement by members of the executive in attending to the issues raised and even the physical attendance in the NCOP. But we have also taken a very naughty decision, which is in the interest, we think, of our work and our responsibility, that whatever happens, as of now, we will name and shame members of the executive who have not done what they should be doing in the NCOP. We will reflect on the interventions in the Northwest, which has now landed on our laps. We will reflect on the Section 139s, 1Bs and Cs, and we will also look at whether we are actually empowered to do what the Constitution says we must do as the NCOP. So we will be looking at ourselves. We are also expected from the ANC side to put up a kind of document that looks back from the formation of the NCOP that will be looking at what we hope the future NCOP must look like, so that it is adequately unique in its performance. So that role of the NCOP that reflects the national, the provincial interest is what we are working on, which we think will be in time for the internal processes of the governing party to impact into what we think the sixth or later parliaments must deal with, to ensure that there is more effective work in the NCOP. I think we will not forget to say that we are a parliament of the people. What happens in the streets affects us. What happens in the international fora affects us. So we'll reflect also on the issues related to violence, across violence and conflict, especially nationally and in the continent, against women and children. We are worried about what is happening in the world. It affects our politics, it affects our economy, and therefore Parliament will have something to say about it. Of course, during the budget votes, other than Parliament, we allow SALGA the space to debate. Unfortunately, they will not be on the speaking list today. We also usually allow the provinces to talk, and we'll see what happens in our speakers list this afternoon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm elected to deputize. I will deputize. Except for a few areas in which I have been asked to deal with them, the delegated issues. I will reflect on those, including on an area of responsibility that I chair, the medical scheme. I'll make a few remarks there, nothing in detail, but I think as part of our responsibility, we have one or two things we will say there, as well as the overall attempt we are making as a country to deal with strategic challenges. So we will say a few things there. Yeah. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The the presiding officers, National Assembly Chair, Speaker, and NCOP Chairperson. Thank you for the comprehensive overview of what will be taking place, what will be happening this afternoon. Just to add that in terms of broadcasting, because we have been, it has been confirmed with the broadcasters that the three main broadcasters, the SABC, the ENCA, and Afroview, they will be carrying the National Assembly live, the budget vote live. So therefore, the National Council of Provinces budget vote taking place at the same time will be broadcast on Parliament Television and YouTube. So the Parliament Television will not carry the National Assembly because it will already be carried by the mainstream broadcasters. But the Parliament Television will carry the National Council of Provinces. So we have already distributed the statements together with the overview. I'm sure you'll get the thrust of the presentations that will be made this afternoon. I'll just open for a few questions so that we can be able to release the presiding officers to go and powder their noses. Powder their noses, including the Deputy Speaker. Yes.
Good morning, it's Marianne Merton from Daily Maverick. In terms of your comments, Madam Speaker, are you signaling that you might not be coming back? There seem to be a few firm comments made. That is the one question. The other question is, with a view to legacy, yes, there's a number of unresolved matters still outstanding, including in terms of the administration of Parliament. The DC, for example, of the suspended Secretary of Parliament, controversies around management performance bonuses. Would it not be perhaps time to settle the Labour Court matter with regards to the different terms and conditions of employment to the so-called chamber support officers? And in terms of your legacy report, looking just at the legislative function of particularly the NA, the national minimum wage was not implemented as undertaken on the 1st of May due to various, I don't know, delays or issues in the legislative process here. We have approximately almost 40 bills that have not been completed yet, that some of them have been outstanding for 2-3 years. Is that an issue, and how would you resolve it? And to the chairperson of the NCOP, specifically on bills, the expropriation bill was referred back by former President Jacob Zuma, I think it was January or February last year. Where are we in the process? I understand there are still issues with the public consultation process on that bill. Also with the MPRDA amendment bill, which since last year and again this year has been emphasized as being absolutely crucial to stabilizing the mining sector in this country. It's been before the NCOP for the better half of 2 years. I may be wrong, it might only be 18 months. And then also if you could give us some more details, has the NCOP already started the process in terms of the Section 101B intervention in the Northwest to set up the required oversight committees and the required monitoring processes? Thank you.
Yeah, no, there's quite a lot of questions. I think maybe we need to take them before we go to another, we give another. But let me also just indicate that in the on the panel as well, we've got the acting Secretary to Parliament, Ma'am Baby Jawa, the National Assembly Secretary, Mr. Masibulele Kaso, and the Secretary to the National Council of Provinces, Advocate Mudivedi Pandela. So their presence will definitely be useful in terms of some of the questions that might be coming from you. Speaker? Okay.
On legislation and outstanding bills and so on, the programming team is engaged with that work, obviously in consultation with the leader of government business. Some of the bills that are referred to in the number 40 have not been introduced. They have been mentioned, they have not been introduced formally into the system itself. In other words, they will only be regarded as formally introduced once they've been tabled before committees, in other words, to the Speaker and then to the appropriate committee. And once that is done, the committee will take a view on some of those. So there has been urgent recall in program committee meetings that there are bills that, because of the time requirements, will not make it. Because, for example, the NCOP required decent time to do its consultations once the NA has finished its work. So some of those bills will be of that nature, that are, because of the depth of consultation that is required, will not make it. So that decision will be made in consultation with the leader of business to point those out. These and these ones are not going to be done so. And generally to discourage new, especially complex and controversial bills, not because of their controversy, but because of the time it will take to complete their work. So those are things that will be considered in giving us finally, the team that works on this, a response from those consultations with the leader of government business and ourselves, so that we can determine which ones we will definitely deal with. Some of those that are outstanding, like the expropriation bill, it's, from what I understand, with us in the NA, will go to the NCOP once the committee has finalized its consideration, whether it is there anything else that it in the NA has to do. It might well be a referral that happens there to the NCOP, and then the NCOP will map out the time frame it will take to complete that expropriation act that was returned, as you say. So it's on that I thought I should say this few words. Yeah.
Should I? The minerals bill, I don't think it spent 2 years with us. And after it came out of the court, it was not referred straight back to the NCOP. It started somewhere else. It is with us, and as far as I know, we were at the stage where we're getting provincial mandates to vote on the bill. So it's almost there. We think it is important. On the section 101B, yes, I think we are in line. We have started with a committee now. Once there was a review of the first section 100 letter which came from the president to us to say that it seems that an in-depth and across the provincial administration, we had to review the structure that would then look at it. So we are forming a committee which would then straddle all the departments of the Northwest, which will fall under section 1B, section 101B. So we are in line. We hope that this committee of the NCOP will do what its predecessor did in Limpopo. It will interact with the administration, both the interministerial and the administration that will be put in place in the Northwest. So we are satisfied with that. We are doing well. I don't know if I'm leaving anything else out. Oh, I think our position on bills is known as the NCOP. If by May you have not introduced, forget it. We're not taking any prisoners on that. Unless it's a bill that's an amendment that is not too technical, then we will deal with it.
I want to start with bills to emphasize what the chairperson has just said. We have an agreement at the program committee level that priority legislation must be with us, must be in not later than the 30th May. That's legislation we must break our necks to process and be done with when we rise before the elections. So when we come back later in the year, we should be ready to do everything that needs to be done and to make sure that that legislation can be passed as agreed through the leader of government business with the executive. Anything else has no chance, because as we've indicated, next year after the budget speech, there's no time. On the question of legacy, am I suggesting anything? No, because none of us can. We don't belong to ourselves. You can have views, you can have thoughts, you can be ambitious, but finally it's not your decision. On the Secretary to Parliament and the case, yes, it came out, and I think some of what came out publicly shouldn't actually have come out. And I want to be specific about the report, the initial report, because it's not a report coming out of a DC exercise. It's an initial report on the basis of which the presiding officers, the executive authority in particular, were able to take certain decisions and consider ways of addressing the matter. Anyway, now that it's out there, we actually are obliged, and I will report to the House. And you will hear when I report to the House. I'm glad my two colleagues have already addressed the issues of legislation. I think the general point to perhaps just clarify is that often legislation takes its own time from source to coming out the other side, in particular in the NCOP. As you've heard, some of it we are aware because there's a document that the Office of the Leader of Government has shared with us, indicating that from the executive side, this is what they would like to make sure that in a particular year is passed. But that's often just a wish list. It's a wish list. What happens sometimes is that the person who had originated the idea of that legislation coming here and being passed is no longer in that portfolio. And the next person doesn't agree that it's necessary. So you have a range of issues and reasons that lead to legislation being stuck at various stages of their journey from source to coming out through Parliament. And we often have to remind one another. I mean, one day the leader of government business came to us when we had indicated to them that we would like to have your priorities for the year. They came back and said, but there's lots of legislation which is that side. And we looked for it, and it was nowhere around us, and it is this journey that bills might take. So you'll find that, in fact, all we're waiting for is the end of the year, so that all that which has not actually proven to be strong enough to survive will lapse. It will just be history, and the following year is an opportunity to start afresh. But I would like Mr. Klasos to say something more by way of adding to clarity on this matter. But I would like also to have the acting Secretary to Parliament to respond to some of the issues that relate to staff and the administration. The only general point I want to make is that, in fact, we are not in a bad place on staff matters. But I think the acting Secretary to Parliament will maybe hint and give a better clarity. I want to mention on an area that is under the Deputy Speaker, on the medical aid. We are required legally, as members of Parliament and the judiciary, to belong to a specific medical aid. I must say, at the beginning of this term, this particular medical aid came under spotlight because there were many MPs who had strong views about this specific medical aid. But right now, he will explain to us when he speaks what are the processes that are underway, where it's not up to only us who are members of Parliament. It's also other sectors that are part and parcel and are required by law to be members of this medical aid. So that consultation is critical so that we can move into a future where we will all enjoy being members of this medical aid. I want to hand over to Ms. Yawa, and then she.
Good morning, Executive Authority, Presiding Officers and colleagues, and fellow media colleagues. The question that is asked is about the case of the Chamber Support staff. I should say that that case is still in the Labour Court, and we're still awaiting the decision of the Labour Court. And I do wish to say that the other case that was also the Labour Court of Researchers, the court decided on the favour of Parliament. The third one is the issues around performance bonuses. Yeah, we continue to try and refine our performance agreement, because the fundamental challenge there is the introduction of balanced scorecard, and the HRE, the Human Resources Executive, has gone into efforts to simplify the performance agreement so that it is quickly understandable. And on the basis of that, we will then contract into a new performance agreement. And I must emphasize the fact that our relationship with our organized labor has improved. Yes, we will always have challenges and problems. The biggest matter is how we handle those. As it is now, management and organized labor are definitely sitting to settle even the current salary increases. And that is continuous negotiations, and that relationship, we're quite positive that when problems arise, we are capable to resolve together, and that there hasn't been a full fallout, which obviously Executive Authority remains quite concerned about. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that the man who is about to speak will also, at the beginning of each week, including during recess, indicate the week ahead in a report that is publicly available that will indicate the legislative program that will be underway. There's agreement that with certain committees, not all of them, who will be busy with dealing with outstanding legislation to complete it. So during that period, there will be committees that has requested, and that space has been given. So he will give an indication on that on a regular basis, as is usual the case. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and that man is me who's talking. So can we get the next question? Babala and Mogoni will take you simultaneously. I hope that your one question is not going to be to generate Babalo. Babalo.
Thank you, Molot. Babalo Ndenza from Eyewitness News. Speaker, just two quick questions. The chairperson of the NCOP mentioned violence against women and girls. The statement also touches on it being still pervasive in our democracy and talks about reviewing the laws we have passed since democracy to address this matter. Thank you for mentioning that. It brings me to the question of Mduduzi Manana. The debate on women last week, I think all opposition MPs called for his removal as an MP or dismissal. The Gender Commission has also called on. Are these calls for him to be removed as an MP, are they justified, Speaker? I know there's an ethics committee matter. Can Parliament not convince him to resign because he is a convict and a repeat offender with anger management issues? Is it perhaps not ideal for Parliament to request him to resign and save the ethics committee a lot of time? And the second question, Speaker, if you could maybe just in a sentence-long review of this term of Parliament, which is about to come to an end, on how it has been for you. I mean, has it taken a toll on you, psychologically or spiritually? And maybe the chairperson of the NCOP, if you could also maybe give us just a brief comment on this term that's about to end, or have things become more harmonious now that Ubaba has left the chamber? Thank you.
Thanks, Mutabo. My name is Tabo Mukoni. I work for the Sunday Times. What are your time frames with regard to Section 89 on the removal of the president? To what extent is this an urgent matter as far as you are concerned? How committed are you to complete this process before your mandate expires? Because, I mean, at the beginning of the year, we saw Parliament moving with, a lot of energy in this regard. But now that Mr. Jacob Zuma is out of office, it seems the institution is quiet on this matter. Can you comment on that? Thanks.
My name is Siyabonga Mkhwanazi from Independent Media. Just wanted to find out from the chair of the NCOP whether you have been approached to take over Northwest as and when the Premier leaves, and basically if you are approached, if you have not been approached, if you are approached, are you prepared to go back there and serve as you did the last time? Thank you.
Okay, we agree that this is the last round. Yes, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The last question, I have definitely not been approached to go back to the Northwest. I have read speculations. When I went to the Northwest, you will remember that the ANC said that I went in as an intervention at that time. And it was agreed that I would finish that term, which I did. I do not think that at this late hour the ANC will ask me to go to the Northwest, but if they do, the tradition, the culture in the ANC is that we are deployed. I'm just hoping that they don't deploy me there. The second one is that you asked us about how we now feel. I would say that we started off 2014 at a very interesting note. You will remember that as we walked in after we were sworn in with the Speaker, we actually went to address 1,000+ workers of the National Parliament who were on strike. We did not understand, but if you look at the situation today, the labor relations, the relations between management and labor have stabilized, and we are able to talk with one another without being aggressive. We don't talk at each other anymore, we engage one another, so that is an improvement. Would I say that the relations amongst members of parliament, you know, now and then the politicians will be at each other's throats. I have noticed in the NCOP that very hot flashes, if you can refer even to men as having hot flashes, of tempers of ahistorical nature about race relations in South Africa now and then flares up in the House. We deal with those, and we must be able to say that to harmoniously work at a nation proudly calling itself equal, non-sexist, is going to take us a while. So sometimes when you preside, you also need to deal with the history. And sometimes you need to calm members down, and sometimes you need to speak out. But I would say that it is normal in any democracy to have those flare-ups. Do I sleep better now that Ubaba has left? No, not at all. Our view is that it comes with the job. We must do what we do when we preside. We must try at all times to be as less emotional about what is happening on the floor as possible. And therefore, anything can happen anytime. I'm just happy that in the National Council of Provinces, we now seem to be more focused on the topics and the issues that affect the people in the streets. Unlike when we started off in 2014, we tended to deal with each other. Now we deal with issues. Thank you.
Let me start by making the general point that often when we don't come out on a daily basis and give you an update on what we're doing on various matters that invariably sit on our agendas, in terms of agendas of the houses or structures or various levels of what we do in terms of using parliament to deal with issues that we have to deal with. It does not mean nothing is happening. It's just that we are not in a possible position to be on every day telling you this is where we are. It's not that we're not doing something just because you don't know that we are actually doing something. It's true though that often processes in politics in general, but in parliament specifically, don't take as little time as we would like ourselves. Because it's not up to anybody else, for instance, to zoom into the issue of Mduduzi, to take a shortcut on issues. The question of how you deal with a person who has yet again behaved in a manner that many South Africans feel very strongly he no longer belongs to parliament. It's not up to any of us. It's not up to the presiding officers as individuals or as people occupying a particular office. There is a way you get to that decision, Baban. It's not up to me to read again in the newspaper and say, no, tomorrow I must talk to the presiding officers, we must get rid of this person. That's not an issue, how you feel as a person occupying the office. There's a way that those matters are dealt with by the institution. And unfortunately, it's not a matter of a day or a week. So it just has to take that way. Because if you were to use your position to take such a strong action, you have to explain actually to South Africa. Never mind the parliamentarians who are here. You have to explain to the people, on what basis did you come to that position? That is why those issues are taken out of our individual hands and they are put in the hands of institutions and structures, so that by the time the issue is concluded, you are at least not going to be blamed for having abused your position. That's why it is correct for us to entrust those decisions to structures, to institutions that we have legally put in place and agreed on to deal with those issues. And so I have specifically asked that the chair of the ethics committee must address this house this afternoon, so that it comes from the people who are dealing with those matters, including other matters. You know, I mean, I was taken to the ethics committee previously, so it's not for the fact that I'm speaker for that matter to be dealt with. It has to go there. The collective who are in that structure must apply their minds. They must come out with a conclusion. And so even the Duduzi Manana matter is being dealt with accordingly in terms of the ethics committee, and we shall all have to just patiently wait. Doesn't matter how we feel, what we think should be done. On the section 89, Babumkone, again, because we have not been telling you what we're doing, doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We've lost interest in that matter. We agreed in terms of what the court ruling had said, that yes, we must deal with this matter expeditiously. We must not unduly delay the processes. So at a point when we had had enough discussion in the Rules Committee, the matter was taken back. Two processes took place. The matter went back to caucuses, so that each caucus would, as a collective, not just leave the matter to the members of the Rules Committee, deal with this matter. But secondly, we also thought we should seek further legal opinion. So we have received all of that, and we are presently trying to find the date that would suit all of us, especially at this time of hectically trying to finish the budget vote process, so that we can then report back to the House. Masbulele, I think we agreed that it should be before we go on recess. We should be able to get back to the Rules Committee and bring the matter back to the House. So we haven't just been folding our arms, we have been doing work at various other levels to make sure that we're satisfied that all the necessary consultation is being done. I think I've addressed the issues that have been raised.
No, thank you very much, our colleagues in the media. I'm not sure whether the presiding officers have also dealt with the spiritual feeling. Baba, you mentioned the spiritual feeling of the. He was asking are you feeling spiritually about the fifth.
Oh, yes, I didn't answer that part. The chairperson reminds me of that day when we walked into the old assembly chamber and the place was full of very disgruntled and screaming members of staff and the leadership of the trade union in the course of the 5th parliament. Because I won't talk about this in detail in the speech this afternoon. But we've walked a sometimes difficult, but I think in the end, constructive journey. And where we are is that we've been able, having decided some couple of years ago, to instruct management that the approach that should be taken is to work on building relationship with the staff. That it was very, very important in the interest of the mood in the institution, the energy, the context within which every human being who is in this place must work. And many times it feels irritating when people are banging on doors, on tables, and they are convinced that their views are correct, and sometimes they are not necessarily correct. But what we encourage is that let us listen to one another, let us hear what is being raised, let us find mechanisms that will help us inculcate a constructive approach to, even when it's necessary, to differ, but that we do it in a manner that doesn't create a fighting mood. Because in a fighting mood, it becomes difficult to build the very institution we need to make sure runs maximally in order for us to play our constitutional role. So, as the acting Secretary to Parliament was saying, we are very far from that. We're not saying there's no room for improvement, but we really are happy about what we have achieved in this time. The rest you will hear when we speak.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, one individual or a problem with one individual must never make you think that individual is the major preoccupation we are going to sleep with. No. Whether that individual's, whoever it is, I can't believe that you believe that we can be so preoccupied with an individual that it makes a difference to whether we're working or not, whether we're sleeping or not. There's no individual, none of us, that can be so central to we as Parliament and the work we do and how we move and whether we are doing the things that we want to do. If you want more about that, my office is upstairs.
No, thank you very much, presiding officers, colleagues in the media. The budget vote is taking place in both houses. We encourage you to cover them both. Thank you very much.